shunned Freud a little bit, with all due respect, the false claim that his theory was not scientific. This has been something that's plagued psychoanalysis since its inception. Remember, Karl Popper had a whole methodology called falsification, which was a methodology in reaction to psychoanalysis. Do you remember, guys? So the claim that it wasn't scientific has plagued it, but there was really no way for psychoanalysis to be scientifically verified. And there's been many psychoanalysts who say it doesn't matter, that the things that are being studied are not observable and they're not scientifically knowable. And many people said they keep it as a philosophy, don't bring it into the field of science. But in the 1990s, they, for the first time, started to have tools and techniques where you could study the unconscious, emotional intelligence, all that stuff. And Freud was verified. He was verified very late. So now he's very much back in vogue. And I can understand, but the whole time I was growing up, I would hear, well, he's not scientific. And I was like, not everything is. Love is not scientifically knowable, but still we ponder it. Yes, but ponder it in terms of philosophy, not in terms of science. So the big debate as to whether or not we're a science still rages, but psychoanalysis has become more scientific. They can measure the neuron. They can look at an unconscious thought, and that was what Freud said. Your anger is not conscious, and now they said, no, Freud was right. Your anger is in the amygdala, and the neuron synapse is not going to the neocortex. Does everyone get that? So you can't think about the anger. So the anger is just there in the emotional center, and the neocortex, which is the part of the brain that thinks, there's no synapse. And with people who have emotional intelligence, so they know they're angry, which is what Freud says, helping people, you show the synapse for them to go to the amygdala, to the neocortex. And other people send the amygdala and it stays there. Freud was right. Oh God, now they can look at it under a microscope. Or CAT scans or whatever they use. How many of you find that amazing, 100 years later? Because that was a big thing with all of this. Finally, psychoanalysis is under the microscope, and everything Freud said was true. But anyway, let's back up. So more influential in psychiatry and education and the general public. He changed our vernacular. Oh, you're so neurotic. You know, what a libido. You know, these are just terms that we use in modern day vernacular. Anyway, two ideas, two major concepts.
Just real quick, so
Yeah, sure.
In the book it says, moreover, the isolation of psychoanalysis from academic psychology was abetted by the development over Freud's own objections of psychoanalysis as a branch of medicine.
Yes.
How can we put it in a branch of medicine and not call it a science or a medicine?
No, you're not. Maybe a little bit, but that was the big controversy. The first generation psychoanalysts were all medical doctors. Freud started in medicine. He was a neurologist.
Yeah.
But his diploma is MD, medical doctor. And you had the first generation, you had Freud in Vienna, you had Carl Abrams in Berlin, you had Ernst Jones in London, you know, the guy in New York, because he was A.A. Brill in New York. So these were the first psychoanalytic institutes. So the New York Psychoanalytic Association, headed by A.A. Brill. He was a contemporary of Freud's, trained by Freud. So Freud was training all these guys, and they were bringing these ideas around the world. They were all medical doctors. Now the new generation is coming. Anna, his daughter, became a psychoanalyst, and she didn't study medicine. And she said, Papa, should I study medicine? Should I go to medical school? And he said, no. He said, my knowledge of medicine did not help me at all here. He says, this is not medicine we're looking at. It's a different topic. He said, I started as a medical doctor looking at symptoms, but those symptoms are caused by psychological conflict. And your study of anatomy and biology will not help you. Anyone who has a symptom must go to a medical doctor to rule out organic dysfunction. And if you can't rule it out, then you go to the psychoanalyst and they look at the internal conflicts. Is everyone getting this? So Freud was one of the first ones who said, you don't need a medical degree. And New York battled him. It was a huge battle. And they were best friends. You know, they adored Freud. But they battled him. And they said, Freud, we love you, but you're wrong. And no one is admitted to the New York, it was the New Yorkers, no one's admitted to the New York Psychoanalytic Institute, I'm looking at another New Yorker, unless you have a medical degree. Minimum criteria to enter for psychoanalytic training was a medical degree. And Freud said, you're greedy, you're elitist, you're trying to keep it in the hands of the medical profession, and it is not medicine we're doing. Open it up to the public. Freud had poets come in, he had reverend, pastors come in, and they got psychoanalytic training as professionals. And New York said you had to be a doctor. Anyway, long explanation.
But makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and but Freud did not. He said no. He said we're not medicine. We're something else. But
was that school basically funded out of him?
How did these things get funded? It was self-funded because I had journals. The New York Psychoanalytic Association.
Who funded it? I mean, who started it?
Well, A.A. Brill was running it. You must have paid tuition. It's still around. In Manhattan, you have a psychoanalytic. You have to go and study to be a psychoanalyst. You have to become a psychoanalyst. In New York, I think they have changed it. I don't think you still need a medical degree, but you need a graduate degree, certain criteria, and then you go and you have to read everything Freud ever wrote. You have to be psychoanalyzed yourself. And then you start to, with teachers and supervisors, you start to psychoanalyze people. But to become a psychoanalyst is very strict training. Yeah. But Freud said you didn't need to be a doctor. And Anna had the very strict training, but she wasn't a doctor. And she made major contributions to psychology.
And what do you think, in your professional opinion now? Because I'm thinking of, like, for example, with maybe going into psychiatry, where this type of knowledge could be extremely beneficial, but then also having that sort of medical background seems to get you into the door with those people. Like a lot of times I think
We're going to look at the power struggles. We're going to look later. They were very elitist. And psychology is still big battles today in 2019 over academic or applied. Clinical, we're the intellectuals. Academic, the ones who are at the universities, have always considered themselves above, and those of you out there earning a living, charging fees. Really, snobbery. And that whole group of the academic psychologists also protested the PsyD, which was a doctorate in psychology, instead of a PhD. What are you talking about? He only has a PsyD. Seriously. 2009.
Where does psychiatry fall in that?
Psychiatry is MD, medical doctor. But so to be a psychoanalyst, you could be a psychiatrist, medical doctor, or a PhD, or a PsyD, but you need additional training for your psychoanalytic credential. It's complicated. And guys, isn't it pathetic, the snobbery? I remember being in corporate life, working on Wall Street. I couldn't stand the politics. I couldn't stand the egos, the power struggles. And I was working for a really fabulous lady, Susie Sutherland. I was doing demography and research for a commercial bank. And I was in graduate school, and I wanted academia. So Susie, my ex-boss, said, but why, Chris? What's this love affair with academia? I said, Susie, we're so corrupt here, and the power struggles. And she said, you are so naive. She said, power struggles? She goes, wait till you get to your first faculty meeting. She goes, here we're fighting over how do you promote toothpaste. There they're fighting over ideas. And she was right. Go to faculty meeting here. Disgusting. Egos! Everybody's the expert. So academics can also be, your egos.